biblical. The fact that this is entry level is diabolical. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're in a 2024 McLaren Artura. This is the replacement for the McLaren 570S. It's sort of the entry level baby McLaren, if you could even call it that, I guess alongside the GT. This car is brand new from the ground up, essentially. Gone is the V8 and we have downgraded to a V6 with an electric motor. So this is a hybrid powertrain, 671 brake horsepower, quite a lot quicker than the 570S. 8-speed dual clutch transmission, a whole new interior. I'll get to that in a bit. But today we're going to take this car out for a drive and see what makes the entry-level McLaren still psychotic. This car is for sale here at European Exotic Center in Tampa, Florida. We're asking $219,995 for this example. Has 1,000 miles on it. So if you do have interest in this vehicle, link will be in the description below. If you're not subscribed to my channel, please consider subscribing. If you'd like to see all my future supercar content, including plenty of car reviews to come. So starting off, we have a 3-liter twin-turbo V6 with an electric motor. Combined power is 671 brake horsepower. That's about 110 more than the 570S. And you do feel that. And honestly, the instant torque and throttle response compared to the 570S, which is already a more linear McLaren in terms of power delivery and acceleration, it's improved upon dramatically. McLaren and Lotus are the last two companies to still be using hydraulic power steering. I think it's just such a joy because the electric power steering, you know, they're getting good, especially with Porsche, but they just don't have the feel. So because this has hydraulic power steering, it has slightly heavier weighted steering than the rivals, which I always prefer. I always thought McLaren's had some of the nicest feeling steering. I mean, that is astronomically quick. That is absurd. I mean, I don't want to say it's quite 720 quick because it just isn't, but it's not far off. It is a nice step above the 570. 0 to 60 happens in 2.9 seconds. Top speed is 205 miles an hour. Spacious cabin, as pretty much all McLarens are. Visibility is fantastic. I mean, like any other McLaren, it's got some of the best visibility outwards, side. Even the blind spot's not terrible. And of course, having such a great view out really allows you to take in that extraordinary speed. I mean, as Lamborghinis, for example, because I mean, you get that incredible styling, but of course you can't really see out of them at all. So I feel like you can't necessarily take in the speed as much. There are two cup holders, but I mean, they're really not, they're not big enough for like the average 900-pound American. So the extra large Slurpee is not going to be able to fit in these. So sitting in the Artura, I will say I'm not a huge fan of the overall just simplistic, almost Tesla-like layout. Of course, it is much nicer than a Tesla in terms of build quality and materials, things like that, but it's just kind of a boring, like lazy. There are still some McLaren signature touches, like where the drive select buttons are. Steering wheel is still very McLaren. Paddle shifters are on that rocker system, so you can pull or push either paddle if you're only driving with one hand. Bowers & Wilkins sound system, probably the best sound system of any supercar, at least that I've heard. You know, it is a nice place to be still, but it's just kind of a soulless nothing, and then just like a stuck-on iPad. And of course, now most of the controls for the AC and whatever else are on the screen, which is just really annoying. I just prefer good old-fashioned buttons and knobs. Like, why is that so difficult? Not everything has to be 0.3 milliseconds quicker than the last thing, or everything has to be quicker and faster and easier. It's like, no, just go back to normal, traditional buttons. It's not that hard. Oh my God. And I can't even laugh. Things like a straight pipe to Ventador or a 458 with an IPE exhaust. Oh. Cars like that just make you laugh because they're just silly. Like, they're just over the top, goofy. This car, I'm just I'm just in awe the whole time of how much pickup this car has. It's eye-openingly quick, so effortless. McLarens you drive with a sort of serious expression on your face. Lambos and Ferraris, you kind of drive them like there might actually be something wrong with you. People who drive McLarens aren't exactly laughing, they're just trying to survive. The sound is growing on me. I do think for a V6, it sounds pretty good. It doesn't have quite the deeper tone of the V8. And like all McLarens, we have a carbon fiber tub, makes the car incredibly rigid, incredibly strong, which allows the convertible version of the Artura to be really no less rigid than the coupe. Really no worse performance-wise, essentially. I mean, it's just such an easy car to go fast in. And it's a rather small car. It feels small. Turn in is quick, but not like a super darty, like some of the modern exotics with electric power steering, and they just feel a little twitchy and a little bit too, I feel like I actually have to kind of turn the wheel a bit more with McLarens, which I just like it more. It just feels a little bit less robotic than the competition, essentially. Now, styling wise, the Artura is an interesting discussion. I do like it. It's a very subtle, simple design, kind of everything flows like exactly how you'd expect it to. If there's any way to put it, I always say the Artura looks like a car that AI would have designed. You know, you just typed it into ChatGTP, just let it cook up something real quick, and it makes the Artura. Nothing really seems overly dramatic, but nothing's really super subtle either. So like all McLarens, you have your comfort, sport, and track settings for both your handling and performance. So you can change up your suspension separately from your transmission, throttle response, things like that, which is always nice that you can control them separately. And we're just in sport now on both settings, and it's just nice. Like McLaren has, I think, some of the best riding supercars. And the Artura, like the 570S, is more of a traditional suspension setup. Unlike the 720, 750, which has a more hydraulic suspension setup, no anti-roll bars, things like that. Those cars really just glide along really nicely. It just feels like there's really nothing beneath you. Sports series cars like the 570 Artura feel a little bit more connected to the road, I will say. A little bit of that kind of sports car element to them. Kind of gives a little bit more of a traditional supercar experience where you just feel a little bit more beneath you and a little bit more in tune with the road that you're on, while still riding really well. I mean, it is so just on rails. Taking this bend at 65 miles an hour, no issue. It just hugs. Now this does have 295 rear section tires, which are a little bit bigger than the 570S's, 285s. McLaren does that on purpose to make it a little bit more of a playful sports car experience compared to your average car, very stuck to the road, but just a little bit less so than, say, like the 750S. You know, it doesn't have any active aero on it. Everything's just fixed. I can imagine the LT version of this car will be pretty nuts. Now, a lot of people do think that McLarens are a little bit emotionless, soulless compared to the competitors from Ferrari, Lamborghini, etc. I do have to agree to an extent. I mean, they've never really been as eventful as, like, say, a Lamborghini Aventador. They haven't really ever sounded quite as good as Lambo, Ferrari, although now you can argue that some of those cars are starting to not sound that great. They kind of sound like ass now, so especially like Ferrari, like the SF90, that just sounds like booty cheeks. I think it sounds better than like the MC20 Maserati. Oh, that is biblical. The fact that this is entry level is diabolical. You really don't need to go this fast. I mean, you just don't. Let's take this bend here. Ooh, I'm getting dizzy. Ooh, I actually am lightheaded. I'm gonna stop that. I'm dehydrated. And in terms of reliability, McLarens have always kind of had this stigma of being a little bit finicky with more so the electronics, more so than like the engine. Usually the engines are actually fine on these cars, to be honest. It's more so just small little, just dumb things that, just stupid lights that will come on here and there that you have to go get cleared, and it's just very time consuming and tedious. And some McLarens are just riddled with constant little bugs here and there that is unfortunate, but then you have some that they have no issues at all, so you kind of have to find a good one. A lot of these hybrids coming out from, like, say, Ferrari with the SF90, just riddled with issues, more so to do with the batteries, and I don't know how that's going to affect these cars 5-10 years from now. if they'll have those issues or not. So now we're in comfort mode on both settings. Don't have interest in being in solely electric mode. It's a little bit more toned down. Throttle response is a little bit looser. Let's go into track. Gauge cluster changes. Oh, track mode. Gear changes are a little more aggressive feeling. Throttle response is as sharp as can be. Gear changes are so quick. I don't want to say they're quite as quick as like Ferrari with the F8 296. Brakes, carbon ceramics. McLaren's always have really nice brake feel. And it revs to almost 8,500 RPM. That is very high. Now Artura, I did have to Google this. Artura stands for Art in Future. Do what you will with that information. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel down below, and I will see you guys in the next one.